The facilities that we have, the resources that we have are great. Thanks to the Lord that we have the enthusiasm, we have the talents like Dr. Magid, Dr. Amir, and we can do a lot. And this is memory for our kids after years, decades, they see themselves singing and doing things in the church. This memory, actually, you may have observed how many people watch our YouTubes. It's thanks Matthew for his effort. So we listen to an important thing. Dr. Magid always speak about the effect of music. I remember long time ago, some of his teaching about how the music affect us, affect people, affect their personality. تفضل man.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. I'd like to thank also Dr. Amir for his support or his organizing tonight. That is much appreciated, Dr. Amir. Thank you. I was so pleased, actually, to see those two wonderful kids who performed tonight, flute and the violin player. That's very courageous and beautiful, beautiful playing, wonderful tone in the flute. The violin is a much harder instrument, and you did extremely well. Very proud of you. And I wish that we see more and more kids, and that's tonight actually is all about that. It's encourage you, parents, to understand the importance of music for our kids. It's not just to have, unfortunately, it's seen sometimes as a nice hobby, good to have, instead of watching TV. But in fact, as we will explore quickly today, it is actually contribute and support academic development as well, as we will see now. I strongly believe in a person, in order to build a successful person, it has to have some sort of round education. Of course, it has to be good academically. We all want our kids to be on top academically. We all want them to be 99.9% and go to medicine, unless you're, particularly if we are Egyptian or Indian, that's we all want that for our kids, and that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but I believe they should also have other aspects in their life to support that and complete the picture to be a happier and more effective person in the society and for the future as well. Music certainly does that. When we look at music and what it does to our kids, we always see music as, or in our culture, we see music, as I mentioned, it's a hobby, and we think it's enough what the Board of Education is providing at school. There are music class at school, and there is sport class at school, but unfortunately, this is not enough to achieve the outcome that we want for our kids. In order to achieve this outcome, we need to have more like the wonderful flute and violin player. One-on-one lesson, very, very important. Because as music is important for physical fitness, music is really important to mental fitness. Sport, of course, is important. There's no doubt about that. But in order to really accelerate and progress in sport, what they do at school is not enough. Children have to be in a team, to play in a team and get coaching in a team. Music is way more important because it increases the concentration level. They make them strive to perform to perfection and attention details and all these things that's listed here. And I'm going to show you how this happened actually, why music supports that. In the Board of Studies now in Australia, I heard lately, it made music as a critical requirement for a critical thinking progress. And they introducing music classes, individual one-on-one music classes at schools. If parents can't afford to have that, to do that privately, the schools started to provide that. Unfortunately, it is not as good as it should be because they just go and buy instruments and they go and make group lessons where kids get lost in group lessons. They don't really get the benefit of music unless they are one-on-one. I don't believe you do have a private teacher. Of course, it's obvious. In group lesson, you won't play the way you played after 3 years. You said you've been playing for 3 years? That's great for 3 years. Now, why should you learn a musical instrument? It is important to teach our children music. There is lots of research showing that creative learning is just as important as literacy and numeracy. Music is not just for talented kids as we think. Sometimes our excuse is, "Well, why would I give my son or daughter a music lesson? They're not really that talented." Well, all these kids that they run in sport fields on Saturday, they're not really going to be athletes. They're not going to be in the Olympic Games. Only very, very, very few. So in music, you should give them music lesson regardless. They not don't encourage them to be professional musicians. It's a very hard and long way, but they will benefit even if they're not very good. The whole learning process of performing music helps all these aspects. I'm going to show you a little video now, which explain exactly what's happening in someone's brain when they perform music.
Did you know that every time musicians pick up their instruments, there are fireworks going off all over their brain? On the outside, they may look calm and focused, reading the music and making the precise and practiced movements required. But inside their brains, there's a party going on. How do we know this? Well, in the last few decades, neuroscientists have made enormous breakthroughs in understanding how our brains work by monitoring them in real time with instruments like fMRI and PET scanners. When people are hooked up to these machines, tasks such as reading or doing math problems each have corresponding areas of the brain where activity can be observed. But when researchers got the participants to listen to music, they saw fireworks. Multiple areas of their brains were lighting up at once as they processed the sound, took it apart to understand elements like melody and rhythm, and then put it all back together into a unified musical experience. And our brains do all this work in a split second between when we first hear the music and when our foot starts to tap along. But when scientists turn from observing the brains of music listeners to those of musicians, the little backyard fireworks became a jubilee. It turns out that while listening to music engages the brain in some pretty interesting activities, playing music is the brain's equivalent of a full body workout. The neuroscientists saw multiple areas of the brain light up, simultaneously processing different information in intricate, interrelated, and astonishingly fast sequences. But what is it about making music that sets the brain alight? The research is still fairly new, but neuroscientists have a pretty good idea. Playing a musical instrument engages practically every area of the brain at once, especially the visual, auditory, and motor cortices. And as with any other workout, disciplined, structured practice in playing music strengthens those brain functions, allowing us to apply that strength to other activities. The most obvious difference between listening to music and playing it is that the latter requires fine motor skills, which are controlled in both hemispheres of the brain. It also combines the linguistic and mathematical precision in which the left hemisphere is more involved, with the novel and creative content that the right excels in. For these reasons, playing music has been found to increase the volume and activity in the brain's corpus callosum, the bridge between the two hemispheres, allowing messages to get across the brain faster and through more diverse routes. This may allow musicians to solve problems more effectively and creatively in both academic and social settings. Because making music also involves crafting and understanding its emotional content and message, musicians often have higher levels of executive function, a category of interlinked tasks that includes planning, strategizing, and attention to detail, and requires simultaneous analysis of both cognitive and emotional aspects. This ability also has an impact on how our memory systems work. And indeed, musicians exhibit enhanced memory functions, creating, storing, and retrieving memories more quickly and efficiently. Studies have found that musicians appear to use their highly connected brains to give each memory multiple tags, such as a conceptual tag, an emotional tag, an audio tag, and a contextual tag, like a good internet search engine. So how do we know that all these benefits are unique to music as opposed to, say, sports or painting? Or could it be that people who go into music were already smarter to begin with? Neuroscientists have explored these issues, but so far they have found that the artistic and aesthetic aspects of learning to play a musical instrument are different from any other activity studied, including other arts. And several randomized studies of participants who showed the same levels of cognitive function and neural processing at the start found that those who were exposed to a period of music learning showed enhancement in multiple brain areas compared to the others. This recent research about the mental benefits of playing music has advanced our understanding of mental function, revealing the inner rhythms and complex interplay that make up the amazing orchestra of our brain.
So we heard all the benefit, but I'm now going to show you how that happened. And this is here a sample of a music score. You don't have to be able to read music, but I'm just want to show you what some musicians do or think while trying to read that and play it. They have to, this is represent right hand and this is left hand if you play the piano, these two lines, and they have to look at the notes, at the timing, and the left hand, which is different key is like, in simple terms, if you don't understand music, is like reading in English, this is as S, but it comes here, you see it as T. So your brain is just a switch between both of them, recognizing that this is S when it's here, but when it's here, it's a different letter. And also count the rhythms, that's where it involves the mathematical and scientific side of the brain. So all musicians are really good in maths. They have to be good in maths. And then all that happens simultaneously at once. So that is where they engage so many parts of the brain. And that's how this fireworks that he was talking about happen. Again, I want to stress on the point that your child must not be very good at it. It doesn't matter if he's not good. It doesn't matter if he's going to spend a year to learn this, while someone else, of course, can learn it in 1 week. As we all have different abilities. But if he spends 1 year trying to do this and find the time and the discipline to sit and practice for half an hour every day, that is where all those benefits that we spoke about before take place. The attention to details, the focusing ability, the discipline, and then when performing music like what these wonderful two kids did, it gives them later on in life the ability to have confidence and present themselves in job interview, or in most jobs now require presentation. And that is not always that someone stands and make presentation. That's not a very easy thing at all. You don't want to be in the position of someone standing in my place now and talking to people. Music helps make that easier than someone who never did stand before people and perform or talk and have to stand and make a speech or presentation. So there are multiple benefits of doing that.
Watching a child at the very beginning of their music education, just exploring an instrument, having got through a half-hour lesson and achieved something that they couldn't do half an hour ago, or reached a new level of understanding that they didn't have half an hour ago. That's excellent.
Learning a musical instrument or developing musical literacy are aims of quality music education. But what if music education had implications for excellence far beyond music itself?
I kept on teaching the Year 12 class, and I kept on having 10 or 15 boys in the class, and 60 or 70% of them would be house captains. I'd always have the school captain or the school vice captain in the class. Is there something about the fact that these are very high-performing humans, not just that they're musicians, but they are performing well in everything, and that made me interested in what music might, or music study might do to the brain in order to actually mean that that's what I was seeing in Year 12. Like many fields of study, you start with something and you delve deeper, and then you find out that that's not really what it's all about anyway. What I have to do is try and figure out how it applies to my teaching, but also how it applies to understanding better why music education is important, why I saw the things I saw in those Year 12 boys. Why do they always get in the top 10 of the school? Why do they always go on to amazing careers? They do it so well, and they take on every life challenge really well. They are well-rounded men. So what was it about music education, if anything, that contributed to that? There's a reasonable amount of research which shows that 1 hour per week of music training in terms of singing, playing instruments, learning how to read music, learning how to understand all of the musical concepts that are written in the curriculum, delivered by an expert, is enough to see a change over a period of time.
You find consistently that those kids who are also engaged with music education do extraordinarily well in their education. So it might sound a little bit Pollyanna-ish, but I think the ingredient of music in there, regardless of the educational focus of each individual, is absolutely crucial. So for me, it's quite simple. The act of making, playing and listening to music as a part of a broad education, and I'm talking about a core curriculum here, is the thing that needs to happen in Australia.
So my area of research is in music neuroscience broadly, which means that I'm interested in understanding the parts of the brain that are most important for music and the effects that music has on the brain. So when we put someone in the scanner, for example, and we play them music or we get them to do a musical task, we see that there's broad activation in the brain. Many areas light up. So you can see already just by a simple task of listening to a piece of music, I've got multiple networks activated in my brain. And so what we know is that if we engage in music listening or music performance regularly, that it exercises those networks or shapes those networks and has benefits for those networks. There are sometimes certain windows of opportunity where the brain has heightened plasticity and where the ability to really shape the brain long term is at its optimal. And we know that those periods tend to occur before the age of 7.
A lot of the research grappled with the question of, were they seeing this these higher intelligent levels, better spatial reasoning, better language ability, all of these things, were they seeing it in these kids just because they were musicians, and musicians, when people who were intelligent were naturally attracted to playing music? So they were trying to grapple with that question. So what they then did, sort of in a sort of second phase of the research, is they took young children and they gave them all music training or music lessons, and then they followed them along the way. And they found that every child improved in terms of their brain development, how their brain functioned, how their memory worked, their language. It was always higher.
I was a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? A rascal, you could say, at school. And my teacher here, she knocked me up into the next difficulty of band. And when I got there, I was a fish out of water. And all the people around me were just a little bit older and much more advanced in their skill than me, in their technique. And suddenly, I didn't feel like I had the confidence to be a smart ass anymore. And through that, I sort of started holding back. And then next thing I knew, at the end of the year, I was vice captain of bands, I was in the top ensemble, I was practicing a couple of hours a day, and I was signing up to do the highest level of music in my Year 12 course. So I think there's definitely some relations in between those two things, but I think it comes down to the application of music education.
All children have different ability. Some can perform 50%, 60%, 70%. We all different. But none of them, or hardly any of them, perform up to his maximum ability. They always perform a little bit below. They have capacity of 60%, they perform around 50 or so because of other distractions, other things in life. They want to play games, they want to do this, they want to do that. So they don't really perform up to their maximum. Music helps to close this gap and makes them really perform up to their full potential. But it doesn't get a student with his ability 70% and make him 100%. Of course, it doesn't do that. But it does, as I mentioned, maximize his or her potential to perform at best in their academic work. And as we heard that, this is my experience too. I worked for a while as well in one of the most prestigious private schools, and I've seen all this. I wasn't teaching classes, but I was teaching instrumental program, doing instrumental program. And all those students who performed good music, because that was very high level of music there, they all were on the top academically, all of them without exception. And many of them did double degree as well. Many of them did medicine with music, or because they just wanted to go deeper and deeper in what they studied. But of course, this is another level. This is very, very high level, not in the standard schools. But it shows that all what we heard here is really true, and I have personally experienced that too.
From this discussion, we can get some results. Music based on mathematics. Art, all types of arts basic on mathematics as well. If we look into this picture for Jesus, it's all mathematics, and so on. So music and the choir is not something to spend a couple of minutes or to show, but it is science. From what you see, it's science. And the lucky that we have in our church, the expertise and the people who are keen, by the help of prayer of our Jacob, to create a group love to praise the Lord, basic on to right rhythm. You will learn the rhythm here with the experts. Now you know you need more time, not 15 minutes, half an hour, or even an hour. You can get this chance. It is not easy to repeat this chance in any other church by these circumstances now. It's your chance to look after your children and give us the chance to discover the skills of your children, to help you to raise them by the right way inside the church, joining, praying and praising the Lord by the right way, by right rhythm. Dawood, the prophet, was playing an instrument, praying to the Lord, praising the Lord. Sons, we need that. That is a long way to raise our kids by this way. It needs time and time, years and years to build up
as Dr. Magid said, and Dr. Amir, that David, the psalmist, had a team of 1,000 musicians. When he used to pray, the Bible says that there were 1,000 musicians. And it's very important. And I just add to Dr. Magid's presentation that, in Egypt, because of poverty, we don't have equipment. So some people learn music by singing rather than instrument. In particular, there's a job in the church called the Ma'allim. Ma'allim is a person that leads the deacons in hymnology. Usually these people learn all the hymns by heart, and the majority of them are blind. A very strange phenomenon, none of them develops dementia. It never happened that any Ma'allim in the history of Egypt developed dementia, which is a phenomenon. Yani what Dr. Magid presented now to show that there are parts of the brain that are invoked by music that cannot be otherwise. Playing instrument is even more. When they like to push dementia away from the person, they say, play with your left hand, for example. Why left hand? Because usually I use my right hand. When I play with my left hand, I excite parts of the brain that are not normally excited. We don't use all our brain. So parts of the brain that are excited by music is very useful.